the Real Time Review. I'm your host, Jesse Nussman. With me, as always, fellow Atlanta film critic Jason Evans. And happy early 4th of July, Jason. Hopefully
Thank
you
you.
are celebrating our nation and all of our wonder. Because we have it's a busy time at the movies, and there are
Yeah,
three new ones that we are going to talk about. Unfortunately for the Minions and Kevin Costner stands out there, we are not talking about Horizon or the Minions sequel, but I figured we'd put our attention on three, in their own ways, it's now occurring to me like pretty dark, perverse movies that are are on America's movie screens this 4th of
yeah.
July season. The one I know you were most excited to talk about is one we've been kind of previewing on this show. It is Yorgos Lanthimos's new film, Kinds of Kindness. We don't have to give too much of the Yorgos Lanthimos
Wow.
backstory because we already covered his last movie, Poor Things, a few months back. This, I would say, is much more of a return to kind of the style of his earlier films, of which, Dogtooth, The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer. I would say for,
Dark.
yes, I would say for audience members who are more used to some of his more recent kind of Oscar-y stuff like The Favorite and Poor Things, that yes, those movies are weird, but this is weird in a different way. I want to give you opportunity to talk about the movie, but I felt it was
Yeah.
important to kind of give a kind of contextual understanding of kind of like what the style of the humor is. Like Yorgos Lanthimos's house style, for lack of a better word, is mostly like it's people saying real in really ridiculous situations and saying ridiculously absurd things to each other, but doing so with like a complete straight-faced earnestness. And so your enjoyment of this movie, I would say if you haven't seen his earlier movies, go watch those first to sort of get a feel for like, is this kind of the tone and vibe that you want to spend almost 3 hours in?
Yeah. First of all, I'll say this film I think will be deeply divisive. I said to a friend of mine, I don't know anyone that I would say I would recommend them going to see this movie. But on the other hand, anyone who saw it, I desperately want to talk to them about
Oh yeah.
it. It's the kind of film I'm not sure it's an enjoyable experience for everybody at the movies, but when it is over, you are absolutely going to want to spend an hour talking to people about what you saw and what you experienced. I think it's really important, by the way, that we explain to everyone that this is essentially three films
Yeah,
put
it's an
together.
anthology story.
Yeah, they're and by the way, the same actors and actresses, Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, and the rest of the cast play different characters in each one of the three films, which is, I guess, part of the confusion of all of it. You have to completely divorce yourself from what the character was in part one to observe them in part two and then in part three. Once you get past that, you know, I think they turn in amazing performances, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean Plemons in particular, he
It's
won the
his
best.
movie. It's his movie for the most part.
Yeah, I mean he won the best actor award at Cannes, which I was sort of like when that happened, I was like, oh, he must really be the standout of the movie, and he's kind of like the lead of the first two
The first
stories.
two, yeah.
Yeah, and I would
The
really say
third one
kind of
is Emma Stone, but yeah,
yeah, I mean, and I don't want to get too much into the like nitty gritty of what happens in each one, just because I think part of the fun and surprise I had watching this was you don't know where it's going half the time, and it's so like ridiculous from minute one
well,
that like you're just sort of like on the edge of your seat of like I don't know where this is going. Anything is possible, but I think these are all three stories that are essentially about the lengths people will go to for love and affection from another person, whether it's their boss, their partner, a cult, or a friend, and Yorgos Lanthimos taking that to like what is the most sort of extreme or unpleasant thing a person would do for quote in the name of love, so to speak.
I like that. I think that's interesting. A lot of my take on this is that as humans, as moviegoers, as people who consume entertainment and stories, when we're presented with a mystery, we need to know the answer. Why does this character allow his life to be controlled by someone else? What happened to the woman who disappeared? And has she actually returned, or is it some weird doppelganger? What's going on with this weird cult that worships water, and why do they want to find some, special person? I know I gave away a little fraction of the plot of each one of
but
these, but
but
but,
not
but
really.
wait, right, right. But wait, so these are each one of these stories have mysteries within them. And again, as consumers of films, we want to know the answer. Yorgos Lanthimos is not interested. He did not pose these questions to talk about the answers, to bring us the answers. He's only interested in how the characters act within these strange situations. He's not into answers, he's into people experiencing the mysteries. And as an audience, that can be really frustrating, but it can also at times be beautiful, revealing, and it can make you think. I mean, it's confusing. It's a pervasively weird experience
it
being in
it
this
it
movie.
it will push your buttons of how uncomfortable you're willing to
Yeah,
be in a movie theater. But and I agree with you. I think it'll not be for everyone, but it's cool when maybe like by doing this episode there's like the one person who goes and sees it and is like, oh my gosh, this is like so much my thing, and then like they dive into like the wider Yorgos catalog, and then all of a sudden, like, we've turned someone onto a great international filmmaker with, even though what I would say is probably like a B- film by his standards. Like
yeah.
I personally got a little bit worn out by the almost 3 hours where like, just because the movie
It
is
held
so
my attention.
yeah.
I was still there because we had
I
three
was
different
never
stories.
bored, but by like the third story, I had a little bit of that feeling of like, I get it. Like I kind of get what you're doing, what this is all about, and was maybe like a little less engaged with the last one. But even then, I agree with you. It's such a like unique, weird, and I want to stress like funny. Like I think this movie is frequently
Yeah.
very, very funny. It's just as I said earlier, I think you have to be on the right wavelength of its humor, and if you can get on that wavelength, I think you're in for a pleasant surprise.
Look, my bottom line is I don't know if it's 25%. I don't know if it's 50%. I don't think it's much more than 50% of people who will go to see this movie and will come out of it and say, yeah, wow, that was fascinating. Um, but there's also 25, probably to 50% of people who, even with this warning we've given them, will go see it and be like, what the hell was that?
Yes, I'm
That's
curious too.
fine.
Yeah,
That's
two more
fine.
things. Go
This
ahead.
is art.
Hmm.
This is creativity, and it's not going to be perfect every time, and it's not going to appeal to everyone. It can still have a message. It can still make you think. It can still prompt a conversation, despite the fact that it is going to be incredibly divisive. But I think, again, it is a really interesting kind of film with some wonderful performances built into it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you kind of like the two questions to wrap us up, kind of what your favorite of sort of the three stories were, if you had a favorite, and then kind of
Mm.
the curious question that I don't have an answer for. I was just curious if you had one of, do you prefer this as an almost 3 hour movie, or would you have rather this had been like a three-part like Netflix miniseries, which is sort of the weird quagmire. Like I know this is a conversation with the Kevin Costner movie that's happening right now, is like, you know, what
Should this have been a TV series?
right,
Yeah.
like what would this fit better as a mini series, or would this fit better as a movie? I don't really have an answer for it with Kinds of Kindness because I didn't experience it as a mini series, but I'm curious if you had any kind of thought around kind of like just the way this is being presented and what we as audiences kind of want from sort of the format of our stories.
Well, I'll say this. If it was presented as a miniseries, no one sits and watches all three of them back to back to back. I think you watch them independent of each other. And they're little, I'm not going to give anything away. They're little things that stitch each one of them together that I think, not that you would miss, but you wouldn't appreciate in quite the same way watching them on separate viewings. And in fact, I sort of think it's difficult enough at times that you wouldn't be like, you watch an episode and then I'm going to watch the next one, 6 hours from now or tomorrow night. It might take some time to get through it. So in that regard, I think that maybe we wouldn't consume it and appreciate it in the same way if it was on streaming. That said, there's nothing about it that screams to me this needs to be seen on a big screen. So I guess it could be okay. And as you point out, it may be easier to sit through 3 1 hour segments as opposed to one 3 hour film. Um, like you say, it's impossible for me to sort of judge which way. I kind of like the fact that I was trapped in a dark movie theater, that I would have had to make a very conscious decision to get up and leave, which is something I almost never, I just can't recall the last time I walked out of a movie, especially one that I was screening like this. So I worry a little bit that if I wasn't in that situation, I might have given up on this at times because, again, super challenging film that just defies your expectations.
Okay, so the next two that we're going to talk about, we have Maxxine, which is the new A24 horror movie, kind of the third entry in this trilogy that writer director Ty West has made with actress Mia Goth. The previous two entries, X and Pearl, came out in 2022. Did you like those two movies? I know I'm a little bit more of the like gnarly like genre movie guy compared to you. You're less of a horror guy than I am. So
Yeah.
like what is your headspace going into, because we saw this last night. We walked out. I think I had a little bit more fun with it than you did, but that also could just be a little bit of like I'm a little bit of a sucker for a movie that is just kind of like fun trash, if that makes sense.
So first of all, you are right. I'm not a big horror guy. I actually don't know that Maxine was really a horror film. I think it was more a dark noir and certainly had some comedic elements to it as well. I never saw Pearl. I saw X. I never saw Pearl. I will tell you that I don't feel like there was anything. I don't believe there's anything I missed in this film as a result of having not seen Pearl. I
Hmm.
think there's some little subtle things that maybe from X you use in this film. Certainly there's a reveal late in the film
Yeah.
that connects back to X. But I'll tell you this, even if you hadn't seen X, that reveal is explained very quickly in a way that makes perfect sense to you and to me doesn't dilute your enjoyment of Maxine. Again, I don't think Maxine to me wasn't a horror film, so I don't know that because X is a slasher film. There's no
Yeah.
question. One of the better
X
slasher films
X
we've
is a
had.
full sort of earnest kind of homage to those like 60s 70s grindhouse movies. You know, something like
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like the obvious influence on that one. And this one is pulling from stuff like, you know, we mentioned Body Double, the Brian De Palma movie afterwards. We thought about a lot. You know, there's tons of like Dario Argento homages in this. There's very like we're not even hiding it, like obvious, you know, allusions to Psycho and Chinatown and all of these sort of
Yeah, it's an 80s look, this is an 80s noir thriller. And
yeah,
it very much feels like it was like made then. There's even, some soft focus kind of stuff that's done. It doesn't even look like a film that's made nowadays, but
yeah,
that's fine because it's trying to capture the vibe of that era of Hollywood and that era of storytelling and the such. Um, it's fine. It's good. I thought that it kind of went off the rails in the final third and the final act.
yeah.
What do you
I
think?
I sort of didn't mind that, if only because it fit into, I think the most interesting aspect of this movie is it is kind of this satire on the like satanic panic of the 80s, which, you
Yeah.
know, you lived through. I did not. So like it is without giving away the reveal, I think a fun sort of inversion and sort of having kind of like the Puritan argument for that movement be sort of the villains of the movie, and the sort of heroes being the people who work in the sort of pornography and the trashy horror movies and the stuff that the rest of the country is kind of trying to sweep under the rug. But even then, like having seen some of Ty West's other movies, like I'd enjoyed this. I had a fun time, but I did kind of get to the end of it and be like, he's sort of commented on this or done this kind of movie before better, whether it's X or House of the Devil is like another one that's like very much like an homage to like 80s slasher movies. So I would say if you like a kind of noir horror thriller, if you like a good slasher movie, it's fun. Check it out. I would not set my expectations relatively high for it, but like
No.
if you enjoyed the first two, if you enjoyed X and Pearl, I think this is like right in your bag and you'll have a pretty fun time.
Yeah, look, it's a solid B minus. There's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yeah.
it's not going to be lasting. It's not going to be all that memorable. Yeah, it's fine. You walk out, you go, yeah, it's fine. Like Not bad, not great, whatever.
You putting Mia Goth on your best actress list?
No, I don't think not quite there.
Uh, are you going to put Lupita Nyong'o on your best actress list? Because then this is our transition to Quiet Place Day One,
Yes,
which
day one,
is
although it takes place over like 3 days, I think.
yeah. I mean, this is
It's
obviously
okay.
the new prequel to the sort of surprise hit sci-fi horror franchise that John Krasinski kind of kicked off back in 2018. This one is not directed by Krasinski. It's directed by the guy who made the movie Pig a few years back with Nicolas Cage,
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of one of the more exciting kind of debut features of the last couple of years. Um, and I was a little worried, going into this that this was going to be one of those instances of like Hollywood puts one of these young indie directors under their wing and then just sort of bulldozes over them and
right.
like
Yeah, forces them to do a blockbuster that they don't, doesn't fit
right.
with their sensibilities. I agree. I don't think that they did that at all here.
No, I sort of walked out being like, all right, like I see you, good for you for like making your kind of moving cancer drama in the middle of this like apocalyptic blockbuster with this I thought like really terrific Lupita Nyong'o performance at the center. I mean, is we talked a little bit about this in terms of Anya Taylor-Joy when we talked about Furiosa, but like is Lupita Nyong'o our best face actor of just like the
She's
way
up
she
there.
is able to convey emotions with just her eyes is so her and Josh O'Connell who play who
You mean I'm sorry, you mean Joseph Quinn?
yes, I apologize.
Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things.
I
Yeah.
get these moppy British boys mixed up, but yes, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things, who kind of comes in and sort of as this sort of other person who's trapped in this kind of like
Right.
apocalyptic
He
alien
doesn't show
invasion.
up till like almost halfway through the film, like a third to
Yeah,
halfway through the film. Yeah.
but even then, like I found him really moving in this, and just like their bond that they build with each other. And it's not really mentioned in the trailers, but I feel it is not a spoiler to say because it's so core to the movie. Like the Lupita Nyong'o character is terminally ill. She has cancer, and I thought that was such. Even if the monster stuff in this feels sort of like thin at this point and a little like, all right, we've kind of seen this before. This is the third movie in this series. I was pretty invested in like what is it to be a person who could die at any day or any week and all of a sudden the entire world sort of goes to hell. And what is going through that person's psychology? What is that person surviving for or living for that is so different than just sort of like I want to make it through for my family or something like that we saw in the previous movies. I just thought that was a fun, interesting wrinkle that I had never seen in a disaster movie like this.
Yeah. I'm glad that they chose something like that because they clearly didn't have anything to say about the mythology of this franchise. We don't get anything about how these alien creatures arrived, why they're here, how they work, what their motives are other than killing people. I mean, I guess we learned they don't actually eat their victims, although why not? Why are they killing people? We don't know very much about
I'm kind of
how
glad
man
it's not explained. Like I kind of was thinking like
I mean, they're
it
just monsters for the sake of monsters, I guess.
right,
Yeah.
like if we got the like full explanation with like someone in like the Oval Office being like they're kidnapping people and draining our brain
Exposition
power,
dump. Yeah.
like I don't know that I needed to know why the monsters are are there or not. It's just sort of like they're here, it's chaos, and then it's just survival at that point.
Yeah, although I will say I was disappointed that we didn't get more of how mankind in general reacted to all this. The movie doesn't even really show us why and how the people of Manhattan figure out we need to keep quiet.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty
like,
isolated to just these like small couple of people.
yeah, it's more a journey kind of film than it is a big sci-fi blockbuster sort of thing. And that's fine. They just chose not to make that film. I don't know that audience, I don't know that that's what I expected. I don't know that other audiences come into it expecting it to be a journey kind of movie. It does lean very heavily on the acting abilities of its stars because remember, they're keeping quiet. There's very little conversation. They figure out if they're close to water, they can sort of whisper and talk to each other. It's great that they figured that out in like 12 hours or so.
Right.
Hey, thumbs up.
And the water rules. I mean, same with like the other movies. Like the water rules like never really make sense. Where it's sort of like, wait, so like a fountain's fine, but like rain it like or rain's fine, and then like
Yeah.
the sea is it. It's not. This is definitely, I would say, on the level of like the first two movies in this series of like if the moment you start to try and kind of like pick apart stuff, like the whole movie's just going to collapse on yourself, and you're probably best off just not doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, we've mentioned the stars of it. There's a definite star in a cat named Frodo,
Yeah,
and yeah, and this is a if you're a cat lover, this is a great cat movie. And Lupita Nyong'o's character is named Sam, so it is entirely appropriate that Sam accompanies Frodo on this perilous, difficult journey into the belly of the beast. I mean,
I
come on.
never picked up on that, but I love that little detail now that her character's name is Sam.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I had I again, it's
She's
like
not a hobbit. She's not a
no,
hobbit, but
no,
she.
no. No. But yeah, I think kind of like Maxine, I think this is a fun B genre movie that
Yeah.
if I sound a little excited about it, it's just because my expectations were so low going into it. I was just sort of like, I'm burnt out on this series. I don't know that we need another one. What more is there to do? Can we not just give Lupita Nyong'o like something better to do? Like, is she our most underused, like, great actor? We basically had her playing
Look,
like puppets in Star Wars, but
I think this is a fine role. This is a really good
yeah,
role. It requires a lot of acting from her. She is in every frame of the movie, and she has to really carry it, because and she has to carry it with acting skills because again, there are very, very few words. By the way, I found one of the things I loved about it. There are all these moments of quiet in the movie, where we're not even getting any score, any music in the background, and in a darkened theater when you're surrounded by silence like that, and the guy 6 rows behind you takes a bite of his popcorn, it really it makes you attuned to how much sound there ordinarily is in our lives. And I
yeah,
think it's interesting and fun to observe it that way. Look, you're right. It's another one of these. It's fine,
yeah,
B minus B plus somewhere in there. I had higher expectations than you did, so maybe I'm a little more disappointed and you're a little more pleased with it. My expectations were coming off the fact that I just think that the original, despite having all these questions about mythology, I think the original Quiet Place is such a fabulous sci-fi film. I was hoping this would, come at least in the general ballpark of that. If it didn't, it's still a decent time at the movies.
yeah. Well, Jason, that about wraps us up for this week. Hope everyone out there enjoys their Fourth of July holiday. Head to the
Hey, we should
movies.
we should tell everyone. So there was a trailer. Speaking of horror movies,
Oh,
there's a trailer for
are you hyping up like our next horror movie we're gonna talk here already?
there's a trailer for Long Legs, which is a Nicolas Cage horror movie that's coming out in about a week or so. I
Yeah,
think you and I are both seeing it next week. I again, I am not a big horror guy. I am sure that this movie is going to give me nightmares for a month. I mean, I may not sleep for 6 months because it just looks like one of the most terrifying things ever. But I'm super psyched to see it because it just looks crazy.
yeah. We'll definitely talk about that. We'll talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, which seems posed to be kind of the big movie of the summer, and we'll talk about Twisters and the return of Glenn Powell to our movie screens, our most precious asset as a movie star at the moment.